I have one angle of modern day context, which is related to modern day temples. Um, Now, India was subject to a lot of invasions. I'm not making this a religious topic. Just if you actually study even the Huns and all that, we've had invasions happening for a very, very long time. Probably for the last 10,000 years, invasions have constantly happened. But because the south of our country is geographically far from the rest of Asia, I feel it also retained a lot of culture, a lot more culture definitely than the north. One way of understanding that is many of the temples got destroyed in the north, etc. And many of the temples were kept strong in the south. The modern day context I have is that we had someone called Praveen Mohan on the show who's made it his life's purpose to explore multiple temples. And he says that a lot of temples actually have a secret treasury as well, like rooms which are full of treasure, full of gold, etc. Now, my understanding is that the kings of the time were trading with the rest of the world. We're talking about trading with the Roman Empire. The Romans are talking about how the gold went to South India. But once it reached South India, I'm sure a lot of it went into temple treasuries as well. Is there any angle you want to add here?
Yeah, I just want to. I don't know how to say this.
No. If you're even if you're against this thought, it's fine.
No, what I'm trying to say is we are talking about a time when temples had not emerged, particularly in South India, because we kind of assume a kind of, how do you put it, timelessness to temples. But temple building, even in even in the north, started only with the Gupta dynasty. Before that, if you look at religion, or what we understand as the progenitor of Hinduism, you have the Vedic religion. And what were the rites which were associated with the Vedic religion? You had the yagas and the yagnas, and they did not require a temple.
Got it.
And even at that point of time, that we're talking about 1500 BCE to 500 BCE, you had the idea of a formless spirit being worshipped as God. And deities, even though they were personified, they were you did not have idols or iconography. Gods or deities being associated with like 6 hands and 18 kinds of weapons in each of those hands. You did not have that. It's much later. It's with the emergence of the Gupta dynasty that we see structural temples evolving. And the South India, it's a whole different story, because Puranic Hinduism, as we refer to it, Hinduism based on the Puranas, or where you have mythology which is slightly similar to what we practice as Hinduism, or what we understand as Hinduism today, that made its way into South India way later, as late as the 7th, 8th century. So you wouldn't see a 1st century temple in Kerala or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh.
So what was happening pre-7th?
So you would see Buddhist stupas, you would see rock cut shrines. For instance, most of the Jaina viharas, they were rock cut shrines. So you would have a hillock or a mountain, and if the mountain was made of something like sandstone, they would carve a niche into the mountain, and that would serve as the vihara. And I know it's a little difficult for us to imagine a situation where you did not have temples and you had an entirely different idea of religion at that point of time.
There was no Hinduism practiced before?
Not as we know it.
According to archaeological records?
According to archaeological records and according to Sangam literature, you have references to certain gods. So I was telling you about the 5 zones that we had, like Kurinji, Mullai and Pale. Each of these zones had their own deities. So for instance, you might have seen a glimpse of Kotravai in the movie Bahubali, though I'm not sure. So there's this, right before the war, you have a sacrifice being given to a goddess in Mahishmati. So I think that image has been borrowed from the Kotravai image. Now, Kotravai was a native goddess of the Kurinji and the Pale. So you have references to Vel, who was yet another god that you had in Maridam. So he was a spear holding deity. You had a sea god called Kadalon, literally translates into the Lord of the Sea. So you had a different set of deities. Now, when Puranic Hinduism made its way into the south, a lot of these gods were fused with the Hindu gods. Now, I'm using Hindu here in a very broad sense of the term. So, for instance, Kotravai was fused into the image of the Durga or the Mahishasura Mardini. And it was easy to do that because she was a female goddess. She was a warmongering goddess. She was someone who the people in Kurinji offered blood sacrifices to. So the Durga image could be fused into the Kotravai image. And all the other feminine deities that you had in the Sangam literature, like the Anang, which was a formless female spirit. She was the fierce goddess of the forest. She was also fused into the Durga image. Now, Vel, the spear-holding god, became Skanda or Kartikeya. So you see a certain kind of hybridization happening where, and I think that's also the beauty of how people in India adapt to things when you have new culture coming into spaces where the culture was not present, pre-existing. You kind of accept it. We have very little innately we have very little hostility. Right. Hostility has been taught to us by the colonial imperial powers. We used to be a whole lot more accepting, where we would find niches. So the pantheon that we had, or the set of deities that we had down south, that was extremely different from the Puranic Hindu deities. And post 8th century, after you see this fusing or hybridization, you would see structural temples slowly emerging.
If you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.